Okay, welcome to the first session of Let Down Your Sails, which is the 6-week series and an excerpt, okay, of the self-directed coaching program that combines metaphysics and positive psychology to enhance autonomy and build resilience. All right. So letting down your sails on a boat essentially means reducing the amount of wind power, okay, that's captured, and it slows down the boat, right? And that's what we are attempting to do in this 6-part series. Slow down the boat and take a look at things and where we are right now. So we're meeting ourselves where we are. And metaphorically, it's about taking a less aggressive approach, right? As far as hustle culture and chasing this and chasing that, right? It's about relinquishing control, right? And more of navigation, right? And not pushing as hard towards a goal. It doesn't mean that you're giving up. It doesn't mean that you're um, reducing your level of motivation. It doesn't mean that. It just, we're talking about navigating it better in a way that doesn't cause stress. And what's so interesting, not interesting, but I did see something online about a woman passing away, right? She was definitely a hard worker. But that's exactly what I'm talking about here. Just because we're working hard doesn't mean that we're working healthy, right? So this is going to be about working healthy, all right? And we want to get away from that chasing culture, especially in a way where we're not able to see what's going on around us and not able to assess our particular environment. So when you talk about literal sailing, right, then a sailor has to lower the sails by loosening the lines a bit, the controlling part, what's controlling them. All right. And that is done in situations like when you're approaching a harbor or when you're encountering strong wind or when you're needing to stop and anchor a bit. And so metaphorically, that's how we're going to explore this as well. And so the goal of the 6-part series is to help establish or define a foundation for you to shape your ideal reality and provide us with some tools to gain a balanced and more complete perspective of who we are. So for the next week, well, 6 weeks, 6 sessions, it's one session over every week. We're going to use this illustration of a sailboat and us as the captain, right, to keep us focused on a whole person perspective, looking at the whole person, not just the one thing that we are trying to why can't I think of the word right now? Triage. That's the word. Not just the one thing that we're trying to triage, because even that thing has an effect on every piece and every aspect of our life. All right. So we're going to explore the characteristics of the life situation, not just the life situation itself and all the parties involved. Now, the elements of the illustration in the coaching series consist of 8 sailboat elements, 4 captain elements, and the lighthouse. But the adapted version, okay, we're going to focus on just 6 parts to explore and how we move through life. But the concepts will still be included in all 6 of those sessions, okay? Now, for our discussion today, we're going to talk about meeting our inner sailboat. Now, why do I use the sailboat metaphor? Well, I like it. I actually love it because it allows us to play with different possibilities regarding the actions of the captain, right? Without actually having to evaluate ourselves or be critical of ourselves, right? And it allows us to distance ourselves psychologically and emotionally from those challenging experiences, but while allowing us to look at it and kind of think about different options for it and encourages us to be more open and curious with ourselves about the possibilities in our lives. Okay. So today I want you to think of yourself as the captain of your sailboat. The ocean is your life, and sometimes that ocean is calm. Sometimes there are storms on that ocean, but your boat, that's that's in your control. Okay, that's what what you're steering, and that's what you're directing. Okay. And you are directing your mind, your spirit, your values, your choices. All right. And all of that is your boat. All right. Now, every boat does need a few things to thrive, and that's what we're looking at here. And it's broken down into the 6 parts that we are going to talk about. So every boat needs a strong foundation, which is going to be the hull. Every boat has a compass and needs a working compass, and that's going to be our direction and our values, because our values drive the direction that we're going in, right? Then we have the sails, which catch the wind, right? That's going to be our goals and our energy, our focus. And we'll talk about how we direct that focus. Then you have a rudder, right, which is about decision making and our discernment, our intuition. Then we have our cargo, right? What's on board? What are we carrying? And that is about our past experiences, our beliefs, right? Those are things that could change, right? Um, even our values, right? And if they're our personal set of values. And then there are our anchors. What is grounding us, or it could even be what's holding us back, right? So those are our parts that we are going to talk about. Um, Now, when we talk about ourselves as the captain, then we have to talk about what our conditions are, right? Do we have clarity? Do we have rest? Do we know when we need rest, right? Do we trust in our ability to steer our boats, right? Even when we can't see exactly the end goal, if we can't see the land that we are shooting for, that vision, do we feel confident in steering that boat? So today, what we're mostly going to focus on is just reflecting on our boat, all right? Not in an effort to fix anything, but just to observe with compassion where we are today. So today we're establishing where we are, right? And just as a disclaimer, I just want to insert in there that this is a broad presentation of the kind of one-on-one coaching that I do. Okay, so it isn't the same as me speaking to your specific life circumstance, but it still explores all the same topics and tools that I discuss with people one-on-one. So this series is meant to help you decide the tools and modalities that you want to explore more, to support you and help, excuse me, strengthen your foundation, okay, as you go along. And if you want to receive all of the replays in the series, please just indicate that in the chat and I will add you to the mailing list for the next 6 weeks, okay? That way, you don't have to worry about if you registered or didn't register for the meeting. And then all the credentials, the login credentials are the same. So the ones that you received today, will be valid for the 6 weeks and for any meeting that's happening at this time at 12:30, okay? Now let's meet your inner sailboat. And this is going to be a reflective activity for you, all right? We're going to talk about, well, you'll get to share what you want to share, but I want you to understand that there's no wrong answer to these questions, okay? This is the activity of just meeting your boat yourself exactly where you are, all right? And so I want to give you guys about 5 minutes to take the questions in and reflect a little bit before we get into our first discussion. I want you to think about, like, what condition is your boat in right now, today? Does it feel sturdy? Does it feel leaky? Does it look brand new? Has it been through a couple of storms? Do you think it needs any repair? All right. And then I want you to think about, what's the weather like in your life, right? Um, this boat on the ocean, is it in calm waters? Are there big monster waves? Is it foggy out there? Are there foggy skies, dark skies? Are there oncoming storms? Think of it in that way. And then I want you to think about what your compass points to. So, what's guiding your choices right now? Are they your values? Is it feedback that you're getting from other individuals? What matters to you as well? Okay. And what do you want to continue to matter? And then what's in your cargo? What are your beliefs as they stand today? What memories are you holding on to and trying to carry out as far as beliefs go or values go? What habits do you have or carrying? Are you satisfied with those habits or things that you want to change? And then what's going on with your anchor? Okay. Is it something that you can look to for grounding you, putting you in a space where you can take everything in and then decide how to proceed from there? Or is it something preventing you from moving towards your destination, your desired reality? And then if your boat could speak to you, what would it say today? So based on all of those things, the condition of your boat, the weather, where you're directed, where you feel like you're going, what you're that the bags, okay, that you're holding, the cargo, and then things that are moving you forward or holding you back, then what would your boat say to you today? Okay, so I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to reflect on that, and then we'll get into a little bit of discussion. All right, so let me hold the um, recording while we do that 5 minutes. And if you're watching the replay, then you can just pause here. Okay, reflect on those questions, and then we're gonna have a little bit of discussion, and then we'll move to the next thing. Okay. If you're taking some time to watch the replay, I would suggest using as a journal prompt. If you're not already journaling, you should, it's not a bad idea to start, all right? Or you could just get an index card, a piece of paper, and jot something down. But I really want you to think about what part of your boat feels most in need of care and attention right now. Okay. And then were you surprised by anything when you checked in with your boat? All right. We had a live discussion, but go ahead and reflect on that as well. Now, when we talk about being the captain, right? Who are we? What are the captain elements about? So the six elements of the sailboat metaphor are important because they are not who we are, right? It's kind of like what are we doing with these different aspects of our life? But that the boat is not us, all right? We are the boat captain and we're interacting with each of those elements of the boat. So, for example, if you are not the compass of your boat, right? That is a boat element. You're the captain who reads the compass. All right. Um, you are not the helm. You're not the steering wheel, but you're the captain who turns the steering wheel, right, to change the boat's direction. You understand? So you can interact with the elements of your boat and the environment. And we're going to talk about how we do that in a few ways, right? By attention, by thought, by motivation, and by action. Now, the six elements of the sailboat illustration represent the key aspects of our human functioning. So you cannot, or at least you should not, be synonymous with your boat or with your environment. Again, we are who we are interacting with the boat and the ocean that the boat is in, right? Okay, the weather, the waves, all right? So as the captain, you want to be in charge of your boat. If you are turning the helm, right? If you are fixing the leaks, that's you being in charge of your boat. Okay, that's you taking the position as the captain, right? And we want to talk about ways that you can not be overwhelmed by all the features of the boat, the ocean that it's in, and the weather that you're sailing. Okay, and all of those elements can be weaknesses that we perceive ourselves to have, emotions that we are navigating. Okay. So, as the captain, you don't need to feel limited by aspects of your external environment, external feedback, regardless of who's involved in it, right? So, that's why we use the metaphor, because you can remove yourself away from the particular situation so that you can actually triage it and decide how do I want to move forward if what I'm doing right now is in line with how I want to move forward. Okay. That's our purpose. So let's take a look at our roles as the captain of our boat. Now, the emphasis is not the boat itself. Remember that, okay? Or what's going on in the external environment when we talk about the captain. Why? Because our relationship with our boat, our relationship with our environment actually determines the level of fulfillment that we have on the journey. Okay, that's what I talk about with reframing and how we see a particular relationship, how we see a particular experience, and whether we see opportunities or no opportunities in them. Okay, so it's about our relationship. So I want to get a little bit deeper into how we might use the elements of the captain um, to interact with our boat. And so let's break that down. The attention, the thoughts, the motivation, and the action. So with the attention, it represents our ability to focus on different aspects of our lives, right? The nature of our attention can differ in a couple of ways. We might ignore our compass and dedicate more of our focus and energy towards the destination, right? Um, we might be fighting waves trying to get there, not really understanding how to navigate those waves, right? Our anchor might be down, not allowing us to move forward. And we're not paying attention to that. We're just completely focused on our end goal. It could be the quality of our attention can vary as well. So we might focus mostly on like, oh my gosh, I see a dark cloud in the distance. So bad weather is coming soon. I have to hurry up and get to my destination, right? Um, or we could see that the compass shows us that we're going in the wrong way, but we don't take any action to make any adjustments because hey, the boat is still going, right? And I can still see the destination. So obviously I'm probably gonna get there. When we see thoughts or talk about our thoughts, then our thoughts represent what our expectations are, all right? What our thinking patterns are, what type of beliefs we have, and how we frame those things. Our thoughts direct our energy, and that's why they're very important. So while some thoughts will definitely reflect accurately what our reality is. Some of our other thoughts could be distorted or they may even negatively affect our well being, whether that be emotionally, mentally, or physically. Uh, let's just say that you imagine thinking your boat is flawed, right? Because it has some leaks in it. And maybe you think, okay, I'm not able to patch these leaks up. And it could also be similar to believing that you are a flawed individual, right? I have leaks. I'm flawed. Um, and you may view yourself as flawed because of how you see your weaknesses or maybe how someone else has commented on some weaknesses and you've adopted or decided to take ownership of that external feedback, partly because you believe there's some truth in it. Okay. So I always encourage people to examine your thoughts before assuming that they are true and choosing how to act. And then we will be able to do that in this 6-part series. So we'll break down a session and talk about thoughts. Okay. Now, our motivations, those represent the why, right? It's the underlying reason for whatever choices we make in life. So motivation is how we choose why we're taking a particular action and why we think it's important. And this element really represents our ability to take concrete actions in life and learn when to pause because there are moments when you should pause. And pausing is a positive action. It's not being lazy, it's not doing nothing, okay? And so I always say that no decision, it's still a decision, even if you back away from them, right? Oh, I don't want to make a decision. Well, you've just made a decision not to make a decision. Does that make any sense? So when you're being intentional about your decisions, you're also being intentional about your pause. All right. So all of it has an effect on our boat and the elements that are going on in our lives. Then lastly, but definitely not least, we have action. And action is the final element and really reflects the differences between intentionality and existing in a more passive way, right? In a mindless state, not taking control of your boat, where everything external, everybody else in your life, everything else in your life kind of dictates how your life journey is playing out. Or like excuses can be something external. It dictates how we're going to move and not move. It's in control of where those pauses are and how our boat is doing in the ocean. We're not being intentional about um, those things, right? So this can apply to like when we're having good weather, right? Life is going well. So, hey, I'm out here, right? And then there's that bad weather when we have to decide what actions we're going to take to cope with difficult times, or if bad weather comes, flips our boat over, like are we able to swim? Are we able to tread water, or are we just going to sink and drown? Okay. So as we are moving forward with this series, please remember that this information is designed so that you can take control, okay, of your life and your journey. Even if you're not working with a coach or you're not working with a therapist, you don't have that support to guide you, because sometimes that may be the case. Maybe you move to a new area. Maybe you're not as familiar with those modalities, and so you're still kind of like figuring that out. Maybe you're between therapists because sometimes finding a good fit is a journey in itself. Okay. But it doesn't mean that you need to suffer in the meantime if you require or desire those supports. Okay. So the next few weeks, we're going to focus on cultivating like your inner lighthouse. In the original Sailboat series, I do talk about the lighthouse and um, what a coach or a therapist. Well, okay, I will in here too, but it focuses a lot on what the role of a coach or a therapist is, because it's not to guide your life. Okay, let me point that out. So, I'm facilitating this discussion, right? Over the next few weeks, but I'm not the captain of your boat. So I don't tell you what to do with your boat. We're exploring the opportunities and possibilities, and then you're deciding how that's going to go, what you want to do, and solidifying that using the tools that you have to make that happen, right? So you could think of me like a lighthouse keeper who's supporting your autonomy as you continue to remain in control of your own boat and make your own choices, right, about that direction. So my main goal in these series is to guide you on how to save yourself, right? Be your life jacket. Okay. Um, yeah, because depending on the word of someone, your mentor, your coach, your therapist, those are guides, those are tools for you to use. It's not the blueprint to your life. Okay. Because what happens when you're not with that person? What happens when it changes, right? Then how do you how do you continue to move forward? All right. So there comes moments when you need rescuing and somebody may not be available. That's going to be all you, right? And you can be in a place to be your own rescue. And so how do we get there? All right. Over the next 6 weeks, we're going to talk about how you can get there. So I'm here temporarily, but you are with yourself always. The coach is there, the therapist is there, your mother is there, your father is there, but temporarily, okay? We don't know when we're going to lose those supports, but we know that we are with us until the end of time. So it's not just about surviving alone, right? It's about surviving in spite of. So when things can't be the way that we desire, can we still survive? My answer is yes. All right. So success to me is continuing without anyone's help when you're absolutely alone. If everything dies off, right, falls off, you are alone. And I know that you can survive. And some of us might be in that space right now. I've definitely been in that space myself, which is kind of how this came along. Also working with different populations, there's just some situations where there's inconsistency, right? But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to consistently, take a look at your boat and make adjustments and make it through. That's just my belief, all right? Um, I think that you should feel good about listening to your own intuition, but maybe it needs to be cultivated, right? Maybe you need to tune into it. Um, and I think that matters whether you serve a God or you don't. Um, just like a lighthouse, I'm in a position of always in the act of service, right? I'm in service to boats. So as a coach, I am an agent in service to you, right? But I don't tell you what to do. Okay. I don't give you the plan on how to get to your destination. Sometimes holding up a mirror is what I say my position is to help you see something that you don't. Um, they always say two heads are better than one, right? Sometimes presenting tools that maybe you have not been introduced to, or maybe you have, but maybe you're not using it in the most effective way, right? So you can examine those things for use in your life. And sometimes I'm just in a role of reminding you to stop and enjoy the progress that you've made as well when you are looking at this long journey ahead. Because learning is a lifelong experience. It's something that you're never going to stop doing. All right. Growing is something that you're never going to stop doing. Okay. So when people are complaining about change, it should be a good thing. It shouldn't feel like a bad thing. It should feel like a good thing. And people are, oh, you changed. No, I'm evolving. I'm becoming, and my onions opening up. These layers are spreading out. Okay. But no way am I ever going to be the authority in your life. Okay. Ever, 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 or anyone who walks this earth. I always say that no one who walks this earth is your God. Okay. And so no practitioner, no energy worker, no coach, should ever be they should never be wearing the captain's hat. You should always be wearing the captain's hat. Okay. They just along for the ride, and they can definitely chime in and give some information. You need to feel comfortable and being able to evaluate that information and figuring out if it needs to be part of charting your course. Okay. So that's what I help with. Um, I don't deserve celebration for you reaching your destination. You deserve all of that credit. And I also like to help people um, give themselves credit and accept that and celebrate that, because we usually think it's a bad thing to celebrate our accomplishments, right? We don't throw them in other people's faces, but we don't have to minimize the fact that shit, we did that. Okay. So now that we understand all of the elements of our journey together and what's going to be going on for the next couple of weeks, I really want to get into a couple of things. I didn't do any exercises. I feel like the exercises that we did together is just fine. So I encourage you to expand upon that. Like I said, if you haven't started journaling, go ahead and journal at least for these 6 weeks, right? Um, there's a lot that happens when we write things down. So if you're watching the replay, again, there's not, I usually do some PDFs, but there's not a PDF to this particular session. It probably will happen in the future sessions, but just that reflection, those questions that we asked, okay? I also just want you to remember that perfection is not the goal. Your boat doesn't have to be perfect, okay, for it to be in sailing order. It just has to be real. If you know anything about sailing or being on boats, like there's a lot of repair that happens on the water. You can't always go back to shore, right? So it's completely about recognizing those things and making those repairs along the way. And so over the next 6 sessions, we'll just look at each part of our boat, okay, the structure of our boat, the tools that we're using on our boat, the direction that we're sailing with our boat, and we're going to build our resilience and self-love from the inside out, right? If we change what we're thinking, then what we're experiencing changes as well, and how we experience what's on the outside changes. So you don't need to bring any, you can share those explanations in here, things that happen, but you don't have to share those things to gain anything from this experience, okay? So I just want people to know that this particular journey is not going to be about fixing yourself, all right? It's just going to be about navigating your waters with the love, with awareness, self-awareness, okay? and being intentional about your choices, right? So you'll get to upgrade your boat little by little. And this is going to be the first step in that little, okay? And it's going to be in a way that honors who you are and who you are becoming. So I'll see you guys next week. I'll hang out a little bit if there's going to be any questions, concerns. All right. I didn't want to make this a long meeting, so we'll go ahead and close out the recording as well, but I'll hang around. Okay.